Hello, welcome to section 1.2 on variables and types of data. In this section, we're going to dig into some of the vocabulary that we looked at in section 1.1, variables and data, and we're going to look at those more in depth and break them into different categories. So, for categorizing data, most data can be put into the following categories. There are two main categories. The first is qualitative data. And we have seen this word before in section 1.1, referring to categorical variables. Those could also be called qualitative variables. So that's where this type of data is coming from. So this is from categorical variables. Okay, and overall, the idea here is that this type of data can be separated into categories based on some characteristic. So we might say like some attribute of the population that we're looking at, persons, things, objects. Um, so some attribute or quality of that population. All right, so qualitative data. Now the data here is going to look like words or letters generally. All right. So examples of things like this might be something like ice cream flavors, for instance. Ice cream flavors. So the data there would be the different flavors of chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, whatever you like, salted caramel. Those would be the different data values for this variable. Now, note with this type of data, this is not great for doing math with it. Well, I mean, we can do some. This is a math class, clearly, but it's not great for mathematical operations like arithmetic type things, like taking an average or something like that. It would be really hard to take an average of different ice cream flavors. Like, what do you get when you average chocolate and strawberry? Um, I don't know. It's not particularly going to give you a meaningful answer there. So that is qualitative data. Now, our other main category is quantitative data. And we've seen that word quantitative briefly before as well in the previous section in reference to numerical variables. Sometimes those are also called quantitative variables. Okay, so overall, quantitative data from numerical variables, these are going to be numbers. That is what the data looks like. And so overall, this is going to be better for mathematical operations, generally speaking. We can take averages and do more arithmetic in a much more natural way. All right, so an example of quantitative data, anything you can think of that has like a number type of output. So first thing that comes to mind for me would be something like income. That would be a quantitative data set, numbers describing different income levels. Okay, now within quantitative data, we are actually going to break this down further into two different subtypes. So these are both quantitative. All right. Quantitative on both of these. And then we'll break it down more. All right, so the first subtype of quantitative data is quantitative discrete data. And discrete is a word, this is not the same thing as this English word. They sound exactly the same. You pronounce both of these as discrete, but this one means like secret or on the down low. That is not what we're talking about here. Discrete data means kind of separated out, not like a continuous line there. So discrete data here is something that results from counting different objects or objects, people, whatever in a population. So we get whole number data for this generally. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, however you would count, your counting numbers, that is discrete. So an example for this would be the number of something, let's see, number of diners in a restaurant, let's say. Because you could go into the restaurant and you could count the number of diners who are in there. Like, say you go into, I don't know, some restaurant, McDonald's, and you just count who's in there. 1, 2, 3, 4 diners in there at the moment. You would never say there are 4.3 people in McDonald's right now. That would be pretty weird. So that would not be an example of discrete data. So we could look at our other type of quantitative data here. That's where we can actually use decimals. This is quantitative continuous data. Okay, make sure I spelled that right. Yeah, continuous. Okay, there we go. And continuous data is not the same as discrete, where discrete was like separated out. That's what the word discrete means. Continuous data takes those points and connects them with a nice continuous spectrum in between. So discrete versus continuous. Continuous data results from measuring. So here we're not limited to just whole numbers, although we can get whole number results here, but we can also get decimals or fractions that we couldn't get with the discrete data. Let me put whole numbers on there as well, because that is a possibility. All right, so this results from measuring. And an example would be anything that you can measure. So let's say we're going to measure weights of kittens. That would be an example of continuous data. So maybe you weigh some kittens and one of them weighs 1.3 pounds, one weighs 1.6. You could even get more precise with that, like 1.65, etc., depending on how accurate your scale is. So that would be examples of continuous data. It can fill in the gaps between our discrete kind of markings there. Okay, now in the next video, we're gonna look at an example here so we can classify some different data types.